to get something better in hand, like a Great Beyond. Seems pretty good. And you know what? We're going to Crescent Strike. We are going to zero value Crescent Strike just to get it out of our hand and have it not be a possible hit. Hey everyone, Raptor Spank here. Today we have another episode of On the Grind, the show where I cover a deck I'm playing in Ranked. I'll break down the deck, a couple of flex spots, and some basic mulligans. Then we'll put the deck through some ranked matches and review how we do afterwards. I'm kicking off Season 6 with ST Peak Control, a little brew of mine that I mentioned on this week's Metacheck, for those of you who didn't see it. But basically, I wanted to build a deck around Targon's Peak and decide that Control was the best way to do it. So this deck is one of the sort of typical penultimate control decks where we have a lot of really high cost finishers combined with really strong removal, fairly costly removal but hard removal, and then an early game that's simply designed to buy us time to get to that point. Normally I'd start with the champion package, but this time I'm going to start with the landmark, Targon's Peak, because it really basically defines what the other choices in the deck are. So we have 3 copies of Targon's Peak, and the idea here is when I first saw this card, I didn't think it was going to be very good, but then I got thinking about Legacy Show and Tell in Magic the Gathering. For people who don't know that, that's a card that allows both players to put a creature from their hand onto the battlefield, and the whole idea of that is why it was so good, or why it's so powerful, is that you are playing the best cards. You're playing the biggest creatures, you're playing the biggest threats. So no matter what, even though you both get to put something to play, you're the only one, you're the one really coming ahead from it. You're the best one from it, because your creatures are better than theirs. So I thought, Targon's Peak probably could work the same way in Legends of Runeterra, so I set out to build this control deck around it. So this card is very important for the deck, because it does make a lot of our very expensive cards, because we do have a very, very high curve. But it makes them free, essentially, and the idea is that our cards should be worth more than whatever our opponent is getting for free. Now let's look at the champion package. This starts with 3 copies of Leona. This is primarily just to slow our opponent down. It can be a little bit of a threat herself. She can block Fearsome fairly well. There's a lot of other Daybreak units, as you'll find out later in the deck, so she can level up fairly easily and then cause more stuns from there. But the idea is this is something for 4 mana that we can just drop to stun our opponent's biggest threat, and then also serve as a blocker that's fairly strong and can probably survive 1 to 2 blocks. So that's the big reason for in the deck. She's not a primary win condition, so this is one of the easier things to swap out of the deck, is swap in a different champion, but I think Leona is the strongest champion we can pair with this, even more so than something like Thresh, because of the fact that the stun works really well against some of the bigger and harder to deal with threats. But then we hit 3 copies of Aurelion Sol, this is a big part of the deck, because when I think about it, if our goal with Targon's Peak is to have the biggest and best threats against our opponent, Aurelion Sol is basically one of the best units you could ever drop onto the battlefield. It just provides so much power. It has Spell Shield, Fury, so it gets bigger. It's a 10/10. When you play it, it'll invoke a Celestial card that costs 7 or more, which is also really, really good. And then every round start, it's going to continue to create random Celestial cards. And his champion spell is also really good for the deck, because there's times with this deck that I will just get a second copy of Aurelion Sol strictly to use Sky's Descent, because it's a great board wipe that's one-sided and can actually be made fairly cheap with this deck, but we'll get into more of that later. All in all, though, this is simply in here because this is the best pound-for-pound card we could ever play off of Targon's Peak for free. So our goal is to hopefully never have to cast him at 10 mana, but if we do, it's still a great finisher. Really, really strong, especially to play on our turn, and can close out the game very, very quickly. Now let's look at the follower package. This starts with 1 copy of Hapless Aristocrats. We have 4 1-drops in the deck, and I've decided to go with 3 of another and only 1 Hapless Aristocrat, but the strength of Aristocrat is that he gets to block twice, essentially, because he blocks once, dies, creates a Spiderling, then that blocks. So this is just a great cheap 1-drop to basically buy us time against aggro decks. Then we have 3 copies of Spacey Sketcher. This is mostly here to give us a little more flexibility, because the celestial cards that she invokes isn't particularly strong, but it gives us a lot of different options from silencing followers to cheapening something in hand, which can actually be pretty relevant, or simply just getting us like the Challenger Snake or a 4-1 to block with, something like that. It basically gives us a lot of options. And as we saw with Aurelion Sol, he invokes things that cost 7 or more. Those often rely on having a Celestial card already in hand, or benefit from how many Celestial cards you've played up until that point, and that is why I've opted to go for 3 Spacey Sketchers and 1 Hapless Aristocrat rather than the other way around, is that this should help start fueling us towards a really, really powerful late game, while also just giving us a lot of catch-all answers to things. Then we have 2 copies of Solari's Shieldbearer. This is just basically a great costed card. The debate is between this and like Mountain Goat, for example, but I think the Daybreak value is just really, really strong off Shieldbearer since the turn you play it. It will probably survive whatever combat it gets into there. And then, more importantly, it can block Fearsome. So if people are playing Wraiths again, if that deck does come back, this gives you a pretty cost-effective way to block their threats. Then we have 3 copies of Solari Priestess. As mentioned with Spacey Sketcher, it's fairly important for us to be generating a lot of Celestials and playing them sometimes just to fuel our late game. So Solari Priestess is a great way to keep generating much more valuable Celestials than Spacey Sketcher, because this is another catch-all. There's a bunch of things we can get off this that could be valuable, from Sisters for life gain, Warrior as essentially removal, or best of all, something like Comet or Meteor Storm to deal with a bunch of things. And even Written in Stars can be very good for getting stuff like Aurelion Sol. So it's just got a lot of great value. It's a very weak body on its own, especially if Fearsomes comes back into full swing, but it still is a good chump blocker. Then we have 2 copies of Eclipse Dragon. I mess around with a couple of different dragons for this slot, but I really like what Eclipse Dragon brings to the deck. Because first off, if you play it with Daybreak, then it's going to make your other things cost a lot less, which can be very good if you can't find Targon's Peak, for example. It can be very good for getting Aurelion Sol down, or getting him down a lot quicker than your opponent is prepared for, which is kind of the idea of the deck. So this is just an alternate way to get to that. And then if you trigger Nightfall, it creates a random Dragon follower and a random Celestial follower in hand. So it refills your hand, and it fills it with very powerful units, generally speaking, that should help you do exceedingly well. So that's another great advantage of this, because obviously we're hoping in the late game to slam a Targon's Peak and just start playing a bunch of things for free. This gives you a bunch more really powerful things to play for free. And it's fairly easy to hit Nightfall in this deck. You wouldn't think it because our things are so expensive, but chances are we're going to have Targon's Peak cheapening something in hand, so we can cast that for 0 and then spend our mana on Eclipse Dragon. So it's actually fairly easy to hit Nightfall off this, let alone that we have stuff like Vile Feast and our 1-drops to trigger Eclipse Dragon. And then finally, we have 2 copies of Commander Ledros. Just like Aurelion Sol, this is one of the best pound-for-pound threats in the game. I don't think I need to explain this too much for people who have played a lot, but for anyone who might be unfamiliar with this, Ledros cutting your opponent's health in half means that as long as you can get your opponent to 18, Ledros is a 1-card instant kill, essentially. If they can't block Ledros, you play him, cut their health in half, swing with Ledros, it kills them. And then when he dies, he goes back to your hand, so you can keep playing him. And if your opponent is at 2 health or less, his trigger will just kill them outright. So this is a great way for us to close out the late game by just slapping things like Ledros. And like I said, he keeps coming back to hand, so if we have Targon's Peak out, chances are we can just swing with him. If he dies, comes back to hand, we play him for free. So it's just a really great card. You're definitely looking to play Aurelion Sol or Ledros as your primary finishers. Now let's look at the spell package. This starts with, as mentioned, 3 copies of Vile Feast. This is just a great low-cost spell that gives you a blocker and also gains you a little bit of life, not much, but something, which can often make the difference. So that's just a really powerful, valuable, cheap spell. Then we have 1 copy of Dragon's Clutch, which can either draw 2 different dragons or grant dragon allies +1/+1. This is the reason we're running Eclipse Dragon, because basically 99% of the time, we are going to want this to draw 2 different dragons. In fact, as of recording, I have never cast this to give Dragon Allies +1/+1. There are probably going to be some circumstances where that will win you the game, but 99% of the time, this is just to draw you Aurelion Sol and Eclipse Dragon. This is really, really good for slamming Targon's Peak and then making sure that you have your best cards in hand to play off of it for free, or just simply increasing the odds that you hit a high-cost spell off your Targon's Peak. So lots of great things for this, and as I mentioned, there's been times I've used this just to pull a second Aurelion Sol, so I have Sky's Descent. It's such a great board wipe that this actually can often just be used to pull a spell, essentially, from the deck. So that it's just a great all-around value card. But since it doesn't do anything itself, it just gets you these cards, it can be really bad to have multiples, and that's why we're only running one copy. Then there's 2 copies of Grasp of the Undying. Great single target removal. At 5 mana, it's kind of expensive, but you can play it as early as turn 3 if you're banking mana every turn, except for the first one. Then it is something you can play to deal with stuff like Misfortune or some of the other biggest turn 3 threats, and it gains you the life that it, or the damage that it deals. It gains you that as Nexus health, so that's really, really important. This can often be the biggest thing that stabilizes us and saves us. In a similar vein, we have 3 copies of Star Shaping, which invokes a Celestial card that costs 7 or more, and then it heals an ally or your Nexus 5. This is just a great way to keep our health high, or keep dealing with burn and things like that, and keep us from getting run down too quickly. And then it finds you a great win condition that can be cheapened off peak. Something like, the Great Beyond is one of the best things you can get, or Immortal Fire, or the Destroyer if you can't find those. It can also find you the Board Wipe that obliterates anything that has 3 power or less. It can find you Supernova. Find you so many really, really powerful late game cards that are especially great if you get them free off of Targon's Peak. So this is just another essentially win condition for our deck, because if we can't find Aurelion Sol, we can't find Ledros, this should find us the big threats to get for free off Targon's Peak. Then we have 2 copies of Atrocity. This is here for the Wombo combo. As I mentioned with Ledros, he halves their Nexus, so if you get them down to 18 health, you play Ledros, cut them down to 9, you swing with Ledros. If they can deal with Ledros, you fling it at them, finish them off that way. It's just a great way to close out games, and especially it's really good in a deck that's running Aurelion Sol and all of these big Celestial threats, because it's very possible to get like a 12-9 Great Beyond, hit them in the air with it, and then fling it at them. Sometimes you win games by doing that combo where you just play it, hit them, and they're tapped out, so you fling it at them to kill them before they get to untap their mana. Then we have 3 copies of Vengeance. This is a big part of the Targon's Peak plan, actually. It's that we should have the biggest threats. But if our opponent does have a big threat that they get for free off Targon's Peak, we have the best removal. We'll just kill it. We'll get to play our thing, and we'll just kill their thing. That's basically the idea. We can play our threat for like 0 and then use all of our mana on a Vengeance, something like that. That's the big plan of the deck, is that if we aren't getting the most value off Targon's Peak, we're just going to be killing the value that they get instead. And that's why we have this really deep, hard removal suite, which is why we go from here to 2 copies of Ruination. This is, okay, they have a lot of things that we have to deal with, so we're going to deal with a lot of things. Vengeance deals with the 1 threat. Ruination does kill our own things. That could be pretty bad, but Aurelion Sol, for example, has Spell Shield. Great Beyond has Spell Shield. So there's a lot of things we have that can survive Ruination, but chances are this is going to do a bit of damage to us as well as our opponent. But there's times we need to cast this on turn 6 just to deal with crazy boards. This is really good against things like Bannermen, Banner Scouts, all of those mid-rangey decks. Go hard mid-range, it can be good against sometimes. It can be good against Burn in the right situation. This is just a good catch-all answer to them having a bunch of stuff. Similar vein as well, Sky's Descent. There's 2 copies of this. I mentioned how strong it is to get an extra Aurelion Sol for it. It's so strong, we're running 2 copies of Sky's Descent. I would drop the Ruinations, or drop 1 Ruination to go 3 Sky's Descent, but the problem here is it costs 15 mana. We have a ton of ways to cheapen that, because Spacey Sketcher is getting us Celestials, the Solari Priestess is getting us Celestials, Aurelion Sol is getting us Celestials, Star Shaper is getting us Celestials, Aurelion Sol and Eclipse Dragon are dragons. There's so many ways to make this cheaper, but as I mentioned with Ruination, there are some turns we have to cast on turn 6, and we can't guarantee that with Sky's Descent. The beauty of Sky's Descent, though, is that it deals 15 damage to all enemies. That will almost always kill everything that they have. There are some threats in the game, obviously, that can live through that, but that will kill most threats your opponent can have, and it doesn't touch yours at all. Your stuff is fine. So this is a one-sided board wipe that lets you continue to have a strong board presence without even wasting your spell shields. So This is why it's so powerful, especially if you can get this for free off of Targon's Peak. Sometimes that's the best thing we could ever get off our peak. There's plenty of mid-range decks in the game, and this can just be such a death knell for them at times, so it's just a great card. Have to include some numbers of it, and I started with one copy. If you look at the difference between this list and the list on Metacheck at the beginning of the week, I messed with a number of things. I got rid of Behold, which was just bad, but I added a Sky's Descent because I started playing it, and the card overperformed my expectations so massively, again, to the point that I am using Dragon's Clutch, I'm using Written in Stars, just to get a Sky's Descent. So I just knew I had to up the count to 2. So it's a really, really powerful card in the deck. Now let's talk a little bit about the flex spots. Right off the bat, you can play with a lot of numbers here. I mentioned that I chose 3 Spacey Sketchers and 1 Hapless Aristocrat. You can flip those numbers. You can drop an Eclipse Dragon for something like another Shield Bearer or another Dragon's Clutch or something like that. Probably not Dragon's Clutch because it's going to draw 2 dragons, so if you go down an Eclipse Dragon, then you're not going to be able to draw Eclipse Dragon off of it, but it's still worth running an extra one just for the Aurelion Sol. But you could drop it for another Grasp of the Undying, for example. That's another great combo. You can also drop things like Atrocity. They're more combo-based for other cards like Grasp. You can drop Sky's Descent for another Ruination for another Sky's Descent, etc., that sort of thing. But you can also drop, probably the best choice here is going to be Solari Priestess, but you could always drop the Shield Bearers for 2 to 3 Frenzied Skitterers, just as a way to... It's kind of a threat on its own, but it's mostly just to slow your opponent down. You just play it on their attack to shrink the power of all their units so that they don't do as much damage. It's a good way to slow them down. You can also replace the Eclipse Dragon with the Infinite Mind Splitter. If you are going to go this route, I would probably drop the 2 Eclipse Dragons, pick up a Mind Splitter, and then add like Grasp of the Undying is probably one of the better choices. But this is a good choice to go with, potentially, because it's a huge body, 8/8 with Fury, that's great, and it stuns threats repeatedly every turn, which can be massive. That's always been absurdly good against the Swain deck, for example, but it can be great against stuff like Field of Rush by tapping down their big units to make sure that they never get to attack with them after Field of Rush, so it is a powerful card. I think it's a little bit too slow, and I really, really, really value the fact that Eclipse Dragon fills our hand. It's really good. I originally had Vox in the list for that same concept, but that was much harder to pull off, but Eclipse Dragon can so easily fill your hand with other very powerful, very valuable cards that I think that's worth more than the control aspect of Mind Splitter. But they're both debatable. You can also drop Grasp of the Undying for Withering Wail. I personally have not done it because discard aggro's kind of fallen off a fair bit, and that's the biggest matchup to run this. It can be good against other burn decks, but a lot of the aggro decks that are in the format now have more than 1 health, so I just don't think Withering Wail does enough anymore. But it is a great choice, especially if the meta shifts back that way, and it also gains you the 3 health that Grasp would, so you don't actually lose any life gain. It's just whether you are more scared of 1 health threats or singular threats, and that's the choice between whether you want to go Withering Wail or Grasp the Undying. You can also include a Passage Unearned. Maybe you drop Dragon's Clutch for this, maybe you drop a 1 of Eclipse Dragon. I'm personally not going with this because the uses for it in the meta right now aren't as high, but we just got through a meta with lots of Hera Wraiths, we had Field of Rush. These are all great things for Passage Unearned because it obliterates all units that were summoned, not played. So it obliterates the whole Harrowing, which means they're not going to count as deaths for a second Harrowing, which can be amazing. But if they play Field of Rush, that's going to pull 2 massive creatures out of their deck, and this will just obliterate them. So they never counted as dying. They don't get any real value off them. If it's Field of Rush running Tryndamere, which it usually is, they don't get the level up because it's obliterated. It doesn't die. So this is just a great answer for those decks. So if you are seeing them a lot in the meta, it could definitely be worth trying to squeeze one of these in. But right now, I think it's a little too niche for where I wanted to be with it at the list. Then from there, there's a couple of other changes we can make. We can drop the Spacey Sketchers, essentially, for 3 copies of Solari Soldier. This is another great 1-drop, because with Daybreak, it becomes a 3/3, so that can make the deck a little more aggressive in the early game, and you can curve even better into a turn 4 Leona off this, because then you can level Leona by the time you play her. So that's very powerful. Also, if you're expecting to see a lot of fearsomes, this can be a great card because you can play it on the defensive just to block a fearsome. So there's a lot of places where Solari Soldier could be a one drop worth running. I really like the Celestial sub-theme of Spacey Sketcher, so that's why I'm going with it. But this is very much a change that I am considering making myself because of how much power it adds, and it is a better chump blocker anyways because it's a 2/2 after Daybreak. So this is a change I'm really highly considering myself. You can also, if life gain is really important, if we see burn come back heavily, because that is one of this deck's weakest matchups, I could see dropping the priestesses for 3 broadback protectors, for example, just to give you a little more consistent life gain coming every turn. So that's something that's worth considering. Right now, I don't think it's worth it, but it's definitely a change that could be of value. Another change that I am very highly considering for myself too now, after having played a ton of games on this deck, is that a one of Divergent Pass could be incredibly powerful for this deck. Targon's Peak is so essential to what our deck is trying to do that having this little extra consistency to find it could be very, very important. In fact, I probably would drop an Eclipse Dragon to add this. That's the change that I think I might make myself going forward, but that obviously weakens your Targon's Peak a little bit, but it does make it more consistent, and that may be worth it. And not to mention, I have still run into Star Spring decks every so often, so being able to destroy their landmark, fairly strong. You can also get rid of a Grand Plaza or some of the other valuable landmarks that are out there now, and you probably are more likely to run into landmarks now because of the new ones that got released, and they are all fairly neat, potentially powerful landmarks. So that added flexibility could be worth a lot too. And then finally, Hush is a really powerful spell. It's still a really powerful spell, so you could consider doing maybe 1 to 2 Hushes. This could be either replacing the Grasp of the Undyings with 2 Hushes, or maybe you drop an Eclipse Dragon for 1 Hush, something like that. Couple of different options you can go for this, but there are some values to using Hush, especially if you're expecting to run into things like Ledros. Ledros is a great thing to have Hush for, or Field of Rush is another great thing against Field of Rush because it can strip away their buffs or strip away the Tryndamere dying condition. So there's a number of uses for Hush, so I could consider running it. I just don't personally see the need for as much in the current meta we're seeing, but that could change very, very easily. So this is definitely a possibility. Now let's talk a bit briefly about mulligans. The big idea here is that you are the best deck as far as like your expensive cards should be better pound for pound than what your opponent has. So that is something you want to keep in mind, but generally speaking, you don't really want to keep a ton of those in hand. You will want to keep Targon's Peak pretty much anytime you see it. Multiple Targon's Peaks can actually be useful, but you kind of only want to keep one in your opener, and if you hit a second one, then that's often a bad top deck, but sometimes that can be really good. I've had games where I had double Targon's Peak out, and it was absolutely insane what I was able to do with it. But generally speaking, that's not what you want. So you really only want to keep one Targon's Peak at most. And then you want to keep a lot of early game stuff to buy you time. You can rely on drawing into the good cards because you have stuff like Priestess to get Rin Stars to get Aurelion Sol, you've got Dragon's Clutch to draw you those, and just in general, if you're keeping low-cost cards, you are fairly likely to draw high-cost cards. So at most, you'd keep like 1 high-cost card. There's certain matchups where that would change, but generally speaking, you want like 3 early game cards, or like 2 early game cards, 1 hard removal, 1 Targon's Peak. That's like the goal perfect hand. So generally speaking, for early game cards, you're looking for some sort of like 1 drop and then maybe a 3 drop, or even Shield Bearer to bridge the gap. Against aggro, that's the big thing you're looking for. You're looking for early game action. As a win condition, if you're going to keep a win condition, because that's the matchup where actually Targon's Peak isn't necessarily going to be great, so if you were going to mulligan a Peak, this is the matchup to do it. But in that one, a great win condition to keep in your opening hand is Star Shaping, because that's going to gain you a bunch of health, and create something that can either A, deal with whatever your opponent's dishing out, or B, just have a finisher for the late game. So lots of great value in star shaping in that matchup, but you're definitely going to want something for turn 1. It would be great to have something for turn 2, like either Vile Feast or Shield Bearer would be a great turn 2, and then some sort of 3-drop, or maybe a Leona, something like that. You wanna make sure that you are being very proactive early, and you're not worrying about how you're going to win, because as long as you can stabilize the early game, you are going to win. You have a much, much better late game than pretty much any other aggro deck out there. The only exception being maybe Hero Race. Maybe Hero Race would be a little scary, but generally speaking, your late game should be so much better than every other deck that you just need to buy yourself time. Against mid-range, this is where hard removal is going to be really important, as well as something like, Targon's Peak Aurelion Sol is really good into this, but like Sky's Descent is great. Priestess is actually good because it can get you Golden Sisters, which is an exceptionally good card against midrange because usually both sisters can trade with whatever your opponent has. The Elusive Sister can force a lot of damage through, and the Lifesteal can basically buffer the early game. But what you really want to find, you want a Ruination or a Sky's Descent. You need some sort of board wipe. Ruination being way better than Sky's Descent in this matchup because there's a very good chance if you're playing against midrange, especially something like Banner Scouts, that you are going to need that turn 6 board wipe, and Sky's Descent won't give you that guarantee. So Ruination's great here, Vengeance is great here, Grasp also can be very great here, and then for units you're going to want something like Shield Bearer, Leona. Priestess can work because, like I said, it can get you Sisters, it can get you Comet or something like that, but generally speaking, you're going to want some sort of unit that can pretty proactively trade. Sketcher's not bad either because it can get you the Charger, the 4-1, or it can get you the Snake, which can be good in the early game, so that's the big stuff you're looking for in the mid-range matchups. Against Control, this is where you could be a little greedier. You keep a Targon's Peak, you keep some like Aurelion Sol as your best payoff, or Ledros. One of those two is really, really good in that matchup, or Dragon's Clutch to get you to that. So Targon's Peak is definitely something to really focus on getting, and then stuff like Vengeance or Sky's Descent is great for dealing with their late game threats. And that's basically how you want to treat the mulligans. Every matchup's different. You'll see a little more as I do the matches next, but generally speaking, you want to focus more on controlling your opponent's strategy with your mulligans than building your own. But in the control mirror matchup, that's where you can be definitely a lot more greedy with your mulligans. And that's the deck for this episode. You can find the deck code as well as the deck link in the description below if you want to try out the deck for yourself. Now let's jump into the matches. Alright, Targon PZ, Victor Leona Sol. Weird. I don't know what this person's going for. None of those champions synergize with each other. Which I realize mine don't really either, but Leona Sol is a pretty typical control shell. Do we keep the Vengeance? I think we do keep the Vengeance. I think it is good enough. Oh lord. Atrocity's terrible though. I don't ever want that myself. Oh my god. You gotta be kidding me. I was just about to say you never want this in your opening hand, and now I have 2. Well, at least there's Peak. That'll help us get somewhere eventually. Alright, so he's gotta be a control deck too. I would not be surprised if my opponent plays Targon's Peak. Ooh, there we go. Written in Stars. Peak plus Written in Stars. That's a combo. I mean, that can hit Leona, which isn't as good for us. Nope, that's one less Leona for it to draw at least. Guess we'll chip some damage through and then play another Priestess probably. I'm really starting to think that our opponent might be a Targon's Peak deck as well. Hard to say. I really think he's a Targon Peak deck. Yeah, so he's got almost no PZ, so he just has Victor to benefit from the Celestials. Okay, yep, so I'm pretty sure this is Targon's Peak. I guess we take Comet then. I feel like that could work fine for us. Hard to say. But I feel like if they play Peak and we play Peak, we're both going to be getting a bunch of free stuff, but I have Vengeances and they don't. They do have the better units on the board right now, though. Okay. Well, no Targon's Peak out of our opponent. How worried are we of Comet? Well, okay, he'd have to hit Comet off the Traveler to have Comet, right? Yeah, because he's only invoked once. He's really thinking. We're going to play Peak here. If he has Comet and he blows up the Peak, that sucks. But that's whatever. We'll live. Yeah, we'll just play Peak. We'll play Targon Peak and hope for the best. We have a lot of good things in hand, but the problem is we have 2 Atrocities, which would be terrible draws. So that is less than ideal. And we don't have Dragon's Clutch to find our Aurelion Sol. I suppose maybe we should have kept Aurelion Sol in hand, but we didn't know it at the time. Okay. So now he's just trying to get a really good Celestial in his hand to hit off Peak. We both have, like, full grips, though, so there's a lot of things that we could draw. I'm going to block here. I think I am going to block here. Not a great start for us right now. We don't have a lot of action in hand. And we have double Atrocity plus Written in Stars, which would be, yep, terrible for us to have to hit. Yeah, I think we just Written in Stars, see what we get. Okay, Aurelion Sol's not awful. We didn't bother playing this, Leona. I don't think we do. Maybe we do, we'll see. Oh lord. Alright, well we play this Leona now because we don't have a choice anymore. Man, these Atrocities are gonna kill us. Ooh, this is getting dicey real quick. We have to find a Sky's Descend or Ruination basically ASAP.
What would you divide?
Leona is definitely dead next turn. She is dying hard next turn. Okay. Well, that's the first good thing that's happened. Can I actually play Aurelion Sol this turn? I think I can. We might. We might do that. I mean, I can always play this with Nightfall to draw a couple of things. But I think we're probably better off playing this first. And just getting Aurelion Sol this turn. So that's 19. That's still not quite there. So yeah, there's no way we level up Aurelion Sol this turn. Ooh, we like that. Well, Cosmic Rays will do exactly nothing. Cosmic Inspiration is not particularly great since we're not a go-wide deck. We have a couple of bad hits in our hand now, though. This is very scary. This is very incredibly scary. I don't know that he can full swing now, though. Oh. Yes he can. Alright, so I think we lose, right? That's just game. Just straight up, right then and there. Yeah, I mean, we go to 2. Yeah, so I don't think it's possible for us to win here anymore. I think that, well, okay, that does not completely and totally eliminate any chance of survival.
Now they'll pay attention.
Okay. I guess we just swing like this, right? I mean, there's no way he takes the hit. We're not that lucky. That is our best chance here, though. Interesting. Not sure what he's going for there.
Open your eyes.
I was gonna say there's no way he takes the hit here. Oh, is that what he's going for? Well, we will, I guess, kill that? I guess we kill that and then we play Golden Sisters so we have life gain and multiple blockers. Is that our best way through this? Dragon's Clutch can find a Sky's Descent. There's that. That's not awful. I mean, we're in an absolutely horrendous place right now, but...
Daylight star will rule the skies.
So, Sky's Descent gets reduced 3 times here? Yeah, I think this is worth doing. We draw the 2 different dragons. Second Aurelion Sol, which is Sky's Descent, which is 9 currently. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. Another Golden Sisters, that's odd.
I do love an audience.
I didn't even realize we were at full grip. Oh! Oh my! Oh my! That's, oh. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we'll take that being cheaper. That might buy us a little bit of time. I don't know what he could have here. I think we probably want to play Golden Sisters. Wow, that Sky's Descent was so huge. And that's why we have 2 copies of it. Plus what we got here. Okay, so has a champion, costs less. Bunch of different options that could be.
Oh, do get a move on.
We did lose, unfortunately, our Vile Feast that we could use to strip Spell Shield off an Aurelion Sol. But he can't play Aurelion Sol, which does lead me to believe that might be what he drew off that.
All unbelievers will see the light.
That's not too bad. So if I play this, the next one costs 2 less, which is still too expensive. So yeah, we'll play another Sisters. Oh, and that has us leveling up Aurelion Sol. Kind of forgot about that. I can in fact lose one of these and still level up Aurelion Sol. That is not bad. Could have a Hush though. Or double Hush. He would need double Hush, that's true. Or some sort of removal spell to kill. Yeah, like that. I mean, that could work. If he swings now? Although, if he swings now, I can block with Aurelion Sol. That's risky. How likely am I to get punished for that? I don't think I am, right? Like, I block here. Aurelion Sol lives. He has no blockers. Yeah, I think we're good, right? I think that means we win, just straight up. Yeah, Aurelion Sol levels up, and now we also win. Do we just stabilize at 2? Well, okay, so he could hit burn. That's what we're most scared of here, is burn. Okay. Well, we're just gonna swing. See if he has Mystic Shot. Oh, no, thank God. That was close. That was very, very, very close. Woo! Alright, well, that was a neat deck by our opponent, but, yeah. The game plan of we have the best cards to play off Targon Peak seemed to work that time around, so not bad. On to the next. Okay, Spooky Ezreal. Interesting. Is there something new they're playing in this? Weird. I don't know, there's Targon Peak. We should definitely have better cards than them. I mean, they probably have the Ledros combo too, but it's probably a good chance that might be it. Is Vile Feast worth running? I don't think so. We might need the Leona though. Ooh, that's good. That is perfect.
What's that noise?
Yeah, that's not that scary. Weird. Alright. I mean, there's no downside to playing it, I suppose.
That egg. Did it move?
I don't think we attack, though. We don't need to rush our opponent in hit points, and we don't want to give them spiders. Not when they've played double hapless and they have Elise in their deck. That's just too risky. Nope, we're not doing anything this turn. We are banking mana this turn. That is what we are doing. Better question is, what are we doing next turn? No, there's the Elise.
idea.
So, worst case scenario, Mystic Shot, kill Shield Bearer, swing with everything, we take 5. Okay, yep. There it is. Well, that's the worst case scenario. And it's still not that bad. Okay. So... questions are... do we just grasp the Elise, or do we play Leona? I guess we play Leona.
The power of the immortal
Because
sun.
Leona stops Elise in theory,
Behold the sun's holy light.
and then we can always grasp Elise if we have to. What? Okay, I forgot about that card. Actually, I'm not even... oh yeah, no, I did see that. Ooh. Another peak. Well, let's see what he does.
I must get out of
That's going to be the determining factor. We're fine taking the hit as long as Elise dies. We can take 4. We are okay with that.
Try to leave a dent.
Then we just play peak, I guess. We have a lot of duds in our hand, unfortunately. This is actually a game where we could do double Targon's Peak, I suppose.
There was a little fella
Oh,
asking for me.
that is scary. That's actually scary. Oh, Lord. Good Lord. Okay, well, let's kill one of these and gain some health. I suppose I didn't need to rush that out, but getting Vile Feast out of my hand before we go into the peak turn is actually worth it.
They grow up so fast.
Well, I mean, these are all reasonably decent cards for me to hit off peak. I somehow knew that was going to be the answer, though. Okay. Well, we will play... maybe, do we grasp? Do we actually just grasp, kill this, gain some health? I think maybe. Gain some health, kill Puffcat Peddler. Hope he didn't get something nutty off of his peak.
I got ways to
Like, if
find
he plays a Ledros, I'm out. I'm gonna be so annoyed if that happens. Okay. What you got? Go hard. Okay. 3 unknowns in hand, one of which costs 0. I think we pitch Leona here. Ooh, these are all bad. These are all terrible. Alright, I guess we take Crescent Strikes. Ooh. Well. Oh, you just have to hope he doesn't have a Ledros. Okay, I don't know what he had for 0, but he didn't play it. Ow. Ooh, I like that. That we like. There it is, how he drew it up. Will it be enough? I do not know. Okay, so we'll block here, and we will block here, and we'll take 2. Nope, Crescent Strike. Probably not getting cast this turn. Ooh, the Mushroom Cloud got Targon's Peak. Oh no. Okay, well, we will play Aurelion Sol. Yeah, I mean, that is pretty sweet. Although, maybe that's better? I don't know what's better in this circumstance. You know what? Let's go Mortal Fire. Because I think it's very possible for us to win with Atrocity, Atrocity lots of things. To be quite honest, Atrocity lots of things. I think we'll Star Shaping now, just to get something better in hand, like a Great Beyond. Seems pretty good. And you know what? We're gonna Crescent Strike. We are gonna 0 value Crescent Strike just to get it out of our hand and have it not be a possible hit. Because we are trying to improve our chances of getting something very good here. Ooh, he's gonna put a lot of Puff Caps in my deck. So that's what he's doing. This is a Puff Cap deck? What?
There they go.
Okay. Well, I mean, that will kill us eventually. But we are setting up quite a combo kill right now. Mystic Shot. Okay. So he probably has something like Vengeance.
My, how they stare.
What else got... Did this get double Targon's Peaked? I didn't even know that was an option. Well, that's highly unfortunate. Wow, I don't even know how to take that. Four here, one to another, just to get one more activation for Great Beyond. Is that even... You know what? No, let's not do that. Let's do Spacey Sketcher, Pitch, Meteor Shower. Get Moon Glow.
Spilled paint is just accidental art.
We're trying to combo kill our opponent this turn. We're trying to kill him this turn. And that's the best way to do it. That should be game, right? Yeah, GG. We actually win, I think. Yeah. We just have to play this first. We just have to play Moonglow. Alright. Yep. And now the taunt begins. I mean, my opponent literally can't do anything. I think. Oh, actually, we don't know what his other zero cost is. We don't know what the other zero cost is. Okay. Swing like that. Take him to 10. Atrocity the rest. Now that we've seen one of his zero costs, I don't think there's anything he can do. So this should be game. Double Targon's Peak, and was even wasted that last turn, but should still be enough. Yep, there we go. All right, and that's game. Not bad at all. Very, very, very weird one, but we will take a win like that. No problem with that. Against Puff Caps. Not bad. On to the next. All right, go hard mid range, huh? Someone trying out an old deck to see how it does. Neat. I'm not actually sure how this matchup goes. All right, well we keep Peak every time. Do we keep Sketcher maybe? Actually, I like Hapless Aristocrat here. Sketcher's not bad, but ooh, I like that. That is better. Alright, well we'll play Aristocrat.
Time to get rich.
Okay. Don't know why he wouldn't attack here, because that's the perfect time for our opponent to attack, because then it kills our Hapless Aristocrat. And even though, yes, this goes down to one less health, you know, he gets rid of the one body. Because the whole reason I kept this instead of Spacey Sketcher is that this is 2 bodies for the cost of 1, which means Go Hard won't actually clear my blockers. He needs multiple Go Hards.
For silver I talk, for gold I leave.
Going wide.
Where are you, spirit?
Yeah, sure.
Heretic.
I'll trade that. Keeping our health total high is probably going to be important in this matchup. Yeah, we'll play Leona. Put another good body on the board. He shouldn't be able to deal with it yet unless he crumbles. And if he spends his entire turn crumbling a Leona, I mean, we're okay with that.
Never lost a fair game.
Okay. I mean, fine with that, I think. I mean, TF will be a problem eventually, to be fair.
Who's that you got there?
That might have to slow our Targon's Peak down. I'm not entirely sure. Can he level up this Twist of Fate in the next 2 turns? I mean, he can. Okay, that gets it to 3. I think we can take the chance. I think we will take the chance. We came here to combo. Let's combo. He hasn't drawn any more cards yet. That's nice. We like to see that at least. What's he got? Oh lord, does he have like 8 fucking go hards?
Lady Luck is smiling.
I don't think we want to take a hit like that.
I have connections.
Maybe keeping Hapless Aristocrat alive is worth prioritizing, but oh, that was definitely the worst possible thing we could have. Yeah. Do we just kill him? I think we might. Let's Spacey Sketcher pitch Ledros first. I guess Crescent Strike.
Accidental art.
No, that's cool. I guess. Problematic. Very, very problematic. So he is running Ledros, and he happened to get the Ledros off it. That's unfortunate. If I Atrocity... Let's just see what happens. I mean, if he's smart, he just passes and goes to combat and swings with everything.
A game. Go on then.
Okay.
Watch the ball, folks.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I think Peak might have killed us here. Need to be a little quicker than that. Oh, at least I can block that.
My shield.
Block there. Block here. Vengeance there. Go to 7. It's not the worst. Not the best, but not the worst. Okay. Oh, that does level up his Twist of Fate. Yep. Well, I mean, we can't win against the nuts running. I don't think this matchup's bad. Our opponent just got obscenely lucky. Like, we're a deck built around using Targon's Peak, and we hit Atrocity with our Targon's Peak, whereas he hit Ledros. Like, that's just unacceptable. To be quite frank, that's just unacceptable. Like, that should not be how that goes. But it is a card game. That will happen. Our opponent got lucky this time around. Alright, so Crescent Strike, followed by Eclipse Dragon. We need to get this out of our hand. I think. Although there is an argument for keeping it. Alright, alright. We're pretty much doomed already as is, so... Ooh, we will play a Serpent, though. So what I'm setting up here is Ledros Atrocity. That's what I'm going for here. Is that Crescent Strike can allow me to force a Ledros through, potentially. Yep, nope. Definitely needs to be a Crescent Strike plus Ledros to make that happen. So now we just have to hope that Targon's Peak hits Ledros. It probably won't, but... Well, that is a sick joke, to be quite frank. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much doomed now, right?
Sunlight lines.
I mean, my opponent has a fully leveled up Go Hard now.
I pull the strings.
Guess we'll pitch this. Try to get something worth something. Equinox isn't terrible. But that's still us just hoping for, oh lord. Okay, well, we will swing with this. And this.
Answer to me.
Yeah, that's fine.
There is assistant.
Okay. Oh, we just died to Go Hard now. That's why he played the Doom Beast. Yeah, we just lose now. Oh yeah. Okay, well, that's yep. That kills us on every level, yeah. Okay, alright. We will play it out. We will play it out, but I mean, the bright side is we could have tried to Equinox Ledros and they would have just glimpsed in response, so we were never winning. We'll let our opponent play it. I know he has it. He just drew 2 cards, so yeah. Yep. Oh well. That's a loss that I don't worry about in the slightest bit. That had nothing to do with our deck and had everything to do with our opponent just getting insanely lucky. So that's an easy one to just throw away. Whatever. Didn't feel like that bad of a matchup, honestly. They just hit the 1 of to maybe 2 of Ledros off of Peak. Oh well, on to the next. Alright, Star Spring combo, huh? Well, this ought to be interesting. Well, the good news is we have access to Comet, which is good. How do we feel about Hapless Aristocrat? Not very good, to be honest. Ruination's pretty good, though. No. Maybe we'll keep Aristocrat just to buy us some time. Okay, there we go. There's the Priestess for Comet. I mean, we would definitely like to get Targon's Peak. That's the biggest thing that this hand's missing. Alright, we'll play Aristocrat then.
The egg. Did it move?
A lot of decisions to make on 0 mana. We're not actually looking to... is that worth blocking? I guess. We're just trying to save hit points at or health at this point. So, yeah, it's worth blocking pretty much anything. I know it. So he's going to play Star Spring this turn. And so he was trying to get me to waste a unit, essentially. But that's fine. Oh, he doesn't have Star Spring. Oh, well, that's better then. Alright, let's see what our opponent plays. There's the Comet. That's what we wanted. Comet for Star Spring or something big that's hard to deal with. Tom Kench, for example. If he plays the Soraka here, we're going to try to Vile Feast his Codger.
It's a big responsibility to shepherd stars.
Do we try it anyways? I think it's probably worth it. He probably has a heal, but forcing him to waste it is worth it. Oh, he doesn't. That's even more worth it.
Osu can sniff out any star.
Is it worth attacking? I don't think so. We don't need to deal damage. We could just wait at this point.
I'll scrutinize something scrumptious.
Huh.
The dawn has arrived. With
we will
its
play
light,
this.
the Solari will unite the heavens.
There's an argument for not playing it, since he's probably just going
Behold
to
the sun's holy light.
feast next turn. I think now we swing with Leona. Oh man, this is risky business, but I think we might be set up to if he casts Acquired Taste targeting Leona, we will just grasp his Tom Kench in response.
Guide all who seek my aid.
Because we have to do this before. Actually, there's like no risk now, right? What could he do about this? I don't think he can do anything, right? Because he can't heal because it's full health. So, yeah, I think we're good. Oh, he could Pale Cascade. Pale Cascade is his big thing. Pale Cascade, then swing with Soraka, full heals. Oh, Sunblessed Vigor works too, that's true.
It's too late now.
That's fine. We're still set up to Comet that. Because I presume he's going to full heal.
Let us peruse this establishment.
There's also an argument for just not caring.
Take heart.
Do we care? I don't think so. I don't think we do. The big downside being that he could level up Tom Kench. I think we're looking to Ruination at this point. We don't even care that we can't find our Targon's Peak. Okay.
Excuse my impertinence.
He needs a Bastion. Otherwise this Ruination is going to work.
I'm sure there's something from
And if he bastions, he only saves the one. The problem is we've now taken a lot of damage, so our health total is starting to get a bit low. And since we didn't find Targon's Peak, we're just kind of in a bad spot there. We did definitely want to start with a Ruination before anything else because we didn't want him to level up Tom Kench.
He's always fighting 8 tons Pablo.
Witness glory.
Yeah. Maybe it's not even worth attacking. He hasn't found Starspring yet, so I mean, that's pretty cool.
You're in for a whooping.
Yeah, that's fine. At this point, we're more scared of him actually dealing damage to us than killing our units. And we do want to swing with Leona because now she's safe. Like, he can't kill it next turn without a pump spell. Do we play Eclipse Dragon? Eh. I don't need to rush. That's kind of cool. Okay, 7 total. So we do this. We draw 2 different dragons. And now we have a Nightfall triggered Eclipse Dragon, which I think we will play. But now we're full-handed, so we're probably going to use Vile Feast this turn. I'm going to swing with this Eclipse Dragon, because it's going to be fairly hard for him to actually kill it.
Dinner on you then.
The best he could probably do is like pump this so it lives. Okay. Maybe.
Oh, you're a wee numpty.
What's he got? Ooh, another Pale Cascade. That is actually pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I guess we do this. We want to get rid of a card in hand. Oh, he drew 2 cards, so that is very scary. Okay, no Starspring yet.
demon discharge.
So his Boxicus has, what, a total of 8 health?
Where there's a
So if he
will,
swings with
there's
that,
a meal.
oh, that's pretty good. That's another really good card. Okay, so options. We can Comet Starspring and then do nothing else. We can Ruination and kill everything, which is probably the right play. Let's see what our opponent does first.
You leave me no choice.
Where are you off to?
Live with purpose.
Huh. Weird. Weird choice. Weird choice. Okay, pass. We're trying to get him to eat the Leona so we can just Ruination and get our Leona back.
The possibilities are infinite.
It's a risky play, but I think overall it's probably for the best.
Appetizers are pretty.
Oh, kind of forgot about that part. Kinda forgot about that part. Okay, decisions. Let's play a messenger. Okay. Not what I was really hoping for.
Stand and fight.
Yeah, I mean, swing with everything, I guess.
You are better than this.
If we're gonna board wipe.
How delectable.
Yeah, I mean, it's still worth board wiping. And again, those are all dead anyways. We're just trying to give our opponent one more chance to play stuff, so yeah, we'll go for the board wipe. He's gonna need double bash and keep anything alive. What's the Starspring at? 5 of 2? Okay.
Take heart. Live with purpose.
I'm not worried about Starspring because I can deal with that. Let's see what he plays. Okay, I can survive that.
You pay. I talk to spirits. These are my rules.
Okay. I can still live through that. Okay, see if he has another heal. He's used a lot of guiding touches, and I think 2 astral protections. Nope, there's one more. That's at least, so he's definitely gone through 2. And a good thing here is, well, I guess astral protection heal he did get the value out of. But yeah, so that's still only at 12. Do we grasp? Is that maybe what we do? Okay. That's not too bad. Okay. White flame, I guess. Alright, that's scary. That is scary. We're not particularly thrilled about where we are right now. Okay, Moon Silver is pretty good. I'm pretty sure we have to get rid of this one spring now. Okay.
Stand back.
Wait a minute. There's not much I can do about that. I think I have to do this. Wait, so if I do this, the next one costs 2 less. Okay, I guess... Oh, no. Oh, no. That doesn't work. Alright. Well, we'll do this, get rid of 1. Alright, so the next one's at 7. That's not too bad. Alright, so we'll Moon Silver this to make something cheaper. Moon Silver and Aurelion Sol, I guess. Kinda have to develop board eventually. This doesn't kill us yet, but I mean, this Star Spring is getting to a concerning point. Well, there's Targon's Peak. Do we go for that? I think I can take that hit.
Show courage.
I can take that hit too. Can I play Targon's Peak? Let's go with yes. And do I play this now? I think maybe. I think maybe we do. Perfect. Perfect! That is what we needed. We need a supernova. We can't cast it yet, but we have a ton of ways to get to the point that we can cast it. Okay, what is that at? 10.
I'll protect you.
Alright, that's actually pretty strong. Alright, so if I do this, that okay, I still can't do that. So we do this. There's actually no advantage to doing that one, right? And there is an advantage to doing this. Okay, because if I play this one, I can't actually do anything with the mana, so I won't actually save anything. Ooh, that is also good. We'll take a Cosmic Rays. So I can't actually benefit from that, but having Sky's Descent be 1 cheaper, it actually does benefit me. And nothing he has can actually survive this Sky's Descent. That is another good thing. Let's see what he plays. Okay, well, we'll just Sky's Descent, clear the board. Clear the board. See how he resets. I guess he could have Bastion. That would work. I presume he's running some number of Bastions. Oh, he's down to 15 cards. Oh, yep. There we go. All right. Perfect. Yeah, we were in pretty strong shape there, though. A little bit of a weird game. He couldn't find his spring until much, much later, and we couldn't find our peak until much, much later. But, I mean, all's well that ends well, I guess. So, yeah, on to the next. Okay. So probably dragons, or it's just Celestial, Leona Sol, and they're using Judgment and Concerted Strike, things like that. Ruination should be good here. We'll pitch the Eclipse Dragon. We'll definitely pitch Atrocity. I do not want Atrocity in my opening hand ever, but apparently the great Runeterra gods decide that that is my fate. We just need to find Peak. That's what we really need to find here. Ooh, and they have the turn 2 Shield Bearer. And on the attack. So that is extraordinarily rough. Priestess, what can you find me? So I have 1 soul in hand already. Okay, I think Golden Sister's probably going to stabilize better. Oh, yeah, alright, well that tells me something.
My spirit shines.
Let's see if he falls for this. Okay. Could have Ranger's Resolve, I suppose. That is what we were hoping he would do. And again, it's good to get the early drops, or the low drops, out of our hand before we get to something like Peak. I mean, we haven't found Peak yet, but that is still the plan of the deck. Alright, we'll play another Priestess. And we'll get Falling Comet. Probably the most useful. And start saving up towards Ruination, I guess.
The dawn has arrived.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. We really need to find Peak. That's what we actually need to find. That's weird. Sure, though. That's fine. I mean, guess doesn't really matter what order he did that in, so... yeah, we'll just pass. I don't think we really are in the category of wanting to Comet a Grand Plaza. I don't think that's really worth enough. What we might do is play something like Golden Sisters, start working towards a Sky's Descent.
My faith protects me.
That's fine. At least we have the Star Shaping to heal us. Unfortunately, this is not a Targon's Peak game because we can't find it, but there's, it could be worse.
What once was two.
Alright, we'll play these. If he has, like, single combat to kill one of them, I'm not all that concerned about it. I suppose if he does, he'll probably kill this.
Forger,
This
your
one will be the
work
smart
is
one.
unparalleled.
Blades bright.
Daybreak, give me a life steal this round. Okay. Yeah, I mean, guess we'll just attack. Okay. Get some damage through. That's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. I think we'll play Eclipse Dragon. See what our opponent does. We're now set up to do Sky's Descent next turn. So that's pretty sweet.
I am the bulwark against
Okay.
darkness.
Well, let's find out what our opponent does next turn. I mean, we're not in terrible shape right now. We just need him to... We need to be able to cast Sky's Descent before he does anything else. I mean, I suppose if he does do something else, we can Ruination. Okay, yeah, well, Sky's Descent it is.
To the edge of daybreak.
Shouldn't be able to do too much about Sky's Descent. Just clean up the board here. The best he could do is probably either have a Bastion or have some sort of combat spell so we lose something out of this too. He probably does have a combat spell. But that's fine. We can lose 1 to 2 of our units. We could lose all 3 to be honest, as long as his board gets wiped. And if he uses that many combat spells up, we are in great shape. Alright. Yeah, so he does have that's 1 Concerted Strike down. Just to kill my Eclipse Dragon, that's actually really good for me. And that means he's not playing anything this turn. I mean, I guess he could play Soldier. Yeah. Yeah, no, we're in exceptional shape from there. Yeah, we'll just swing. So what do we do now? Play Aurelion Sol? Yeah, that probably makes the most sense.
Bask in the light's radiance.
Play Aurelion Sol and then pitch something to Spacey Sketcher, I guess. He's pretty unlikely to be able to do something about Aurelion Sol. Yeah, yep, and he knows it. All right, yeah, no, that was exceptionally good. Not bad at all. And we didn't even find our peak, which I honestly think peak is a big part of what would make that go well for us, or even better for us, I should say. And we didn't even find it, and we still won. So not bad at all. I guess that just applies to the core tenets of why we built this deck, is that we're just playing the best cards so that our Targon's Peak is more one-sided for us, and that was a great example of it. And we had great redundancy there. Like, even if he could, or even if he concerted strike first to kill my dragon, I still Ruination and wipe his board. Then I just lose mine, too. But Sky's Descent, exceptional in this deck, but we'll talk about more of that stuff all in the wrap-up. Alright, so how do we do in our matches? Well, overall, I went 4-1 in the games we played there, and in total, I am currently 7-5 on the deck. So, a little worse off than our matches, but it's a 58% win rate, and I think the deck could use a little bit of tweaking, but it actually performed exceptionally better than I expected. The big things that I've lost against is, aside from that extraordinarily lucky go hard mid-range deck, which on a matchup, I think that honestly just throw that out of the statistic because that is nuts. I think that matchup's actually really good for the deck, except if Targon's Peak hits their one of to sometimes, at most, 2 of Commander Ledros. And even then, it's fine if it hits Ledros just later in the game. But the fact is, we hit Ledros that early for our opponent while hitting nothing but garbage for us was actually insane. So that one I don't even remotely consider. The big thing that I think can be scary is very fast aggro decks. Now, that's pretty typical against control, but specifically burn aggro decks, we have a lot of really high-cost cards. We have a decent plan for those aggro decks, but I played against Teemo Burn, just mono Teemo Burn, and I mulliganed everything in my starting hand except for Leona, because they were all 5 costs or higher, and then I drew all 5 costs or higher cards off that, which isn't that unreasonable for what the deck does. But I didn't have any play until turn 4, which you will lose those games, period, especially against Burn. But that is one of the risks of the deck. We play so many high-cost spells that it can be very hard for us to have a decent early game to hold off until our late game. That said, we have one of the faster kills for control decks because of what Targon's Peak does for our deck. And even if we lose pretty quickly because of Targon's Peak. So, that's all things to keep in mind. And there is some games we'll just lose to things like that. The big things with the aggro was the Teemo Burn I mentioned, but also I played against Riven, and I think Victor might have been the other card in it. But I lost to Riven, Ballistic Bot, Shiraza, and he just so happened had the only pump spell in existence in Noxus. Well, I guess there's Transfusion too, but he happened to have the 3/2 that they just printed to give Shiraza a health, because I actually blocked one thing and then Atrocity flung it at Shiraza, which would have killed her, but she had all the pump spells off of off of Reforge, had all those pump spells on her, so if she died, I was fine, but if she was unblocked, I was dead no matter what happened. And that is in fact what happened, is that they had the pump spell, so there's nothing I could do, and I just lost the game there. So, aggro's a problem, but generally speaking, deck is in fairly reasonable shape. One of the other losses was to his OETF deck, but that was on an old version of the deck. I do think it still needs a few more tweaks. By old version, it was the version I was playing is exactly the version you'll see if you look at this week's Metacheck. If you compare the two, you'll notice I made a couple of swaps. I changed some things around. I got rid of the Behold. I changed Vox with Eclipse Dragon, which that is a solid choice. And then I added one more Sky's Descent, which I also think is fantastic. There is an argument for maybe dropping one of our board wipes instead of going to Ruination to Sky's Descent, but the problem is they're both so good into different situations, because Sky's Descent can be absurdly expensive and hard to cast, but it is a much better board wipe for our deck. So that I'm mostly okay with. I think the double Eclipse Dragon is probably not worth running, and it's debatable if it's worth running the Atrocities to that many Atrocities. I like the fast win of Atrocity there, but there's so many games, not even recorded, even the other ones, same thing, where I have Atrocity in hand, getting made cheap off of Targon's Peak and having nothing to use them on, or just not being enough to win, and then just like, I think there was one game, and I think that was recorded, but I think there was one game in which Atrocity won us the game, where it was a bunch of other times that it just really wasn't necessary. We either won the game or lost the game just on the merits of our board state, and Atrocity didn't accelerate that much. So that alone, it's the Ledros Atrocity combo is strong, but Atrocity just cost us so many games. So I think it really would be worth getting rid of that for something else, or maybe dropping one Atrocity and just keeping the one copy for just a random win. There's also an argument for trying to get more card draw in the deck. I do think that we struggle to find Targon's Peak, and when we don't have Targon's Peak, that can be bad. So there is a debate for actually just pitching the Dragon's Clutch, for example, and replacing it with something like Divergent Path to ensure that we get Targon's Peak. So I think that is a real change that I probably would make. So I would probably drop an Eclipse Dragon right off the bat, drop that down to 1, then maybe pick up a Divergent Path off that, and then maybe drop an Atrocity for something like the third Shield Bearer or some other early game thing, or just go Grasp of the Undying for more life gain. That's probably what I would do going forward, but I do think the deck is actually surprisingly good, very, very fun, a neat little control deck that has a relatively... It's a unique way of playing, but a relatively fast kill, too, for control, which is really, really nice. The deck kind of lived up to the hype I had for it. I always knew it was kind of going to be a little more 50-50 coin flippy. I kind of knew that was going to be the case. It's a little more so than I expected, but the deck is still performing better. That's the weird thing, is that the coin flip, it's more random than I was hoping for when I drew it up, but it's actually a better performing deck than I was expecting, because I thought there was a good chance that this would be a flop. So I messed around with a couple of decks real quick, and this is, I didn't have like a ton of time to play, but I messed around with a couple one, and this deck was the one that wowed the most right off the bat. And in fact, most of my losses came after the recorded games, and it really is just figuring out the right way to play each matchup. So that's the biggest concern with it, and the fact that I do think it can be tweaked just a little bit. I think it's a little more top heavy than it needs to be, and I think it's important enough to hit Targon's Peak that we should consider something like Divergent Path to make that a little bit more consistent. And then again, I might drop the Atrocity package entirely to replace it with other things. Probably a better early game, although the better early game does make Targon's Peak worse, so that's the fine line we have to kind of dance, but Atrocity is just too often a dead card, so it's probably worth dropping the whole package, or at least dropping one. But yeah, that is the deck for this week's On the Grind. Happy to be back at it again after my week off, and this expansion looks like it could be really, really neat. There's a lot of kind of annoying cards right now, but I think when things have stabilized, it won't be too bad. So yeah, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment below, and subscribe for more videos just like it.